Hey, what's going on, everybody, and welcome back to my channel, Movie Files. Elliot back again with my weekly recap, breakdown, and review of the latest episode of HBO's Mare of Easttown. We're talking episode 6, which means we only got one episode left, which hurts my heart, but episode 6, which was titled "Sore Must Be the Storm." Now, we're going to break a lot down in this review. Number one, we're going to talk about that title and what it means to this episode. We're going to talk about the theme in this episode, which was mothers and daughters. We're going to talk about family reunions. And oh yeah, we have the killer, or at least we think we have the killer who's responsible for killing Erin. We're going to break it all down here in this review, but before we dive into it, make sure you all are following me on all my other social media accounts. If you're new to the channel, welcome to the community. Consider subscribing and hitting that notification bell. That way you can get the alert for when I drop new content. It would mean the world to me if you all can like and share this review to all the Mare of Easttown fans that you know out there. It helps out the channel a lot, but I also appreciate the support. And it's going to sound like a broken record, but I really mean this. Thank you for the continued support on these reviews, the likes, the shares, but more importantly, the incredible comments. So if you're watching this on the live premiere, let's talk about it in the live chat. I'm going to drop in there and talk to you all while we're watching this together. But if you're watching this on the replay, drop all your comments in the comment section, your pros and cons of the episode. Let's talk about the reveals that we got, the bullet and the gun in the attic. And also, it looks like it's a two-way horse race right now between Dylan and Billy being the killer. But listen, I still have my suspicions on another character that we're going to talk about in this review, but I want to know what you all thought about this episode. And as we break down this episode, continue to leave your comments in the comment section. So before we dive into this breakdown, which will be pretty extensive, so sit back and relax and let's break it all down. But number one, I want to bring up a cool event that we're doing next week here on this channel live, May 30th, 8:30 p.m. Central Time. We're going to pregame before the actual finale, but we will be doing a live watch along. So 30 minutes before it goes live, we're going to chat, have some fun conversations about the show, thoughts, theories, all that fun stuff. But as soon as it drops at 9 p.m., we're going to watch it live together. I'm not going to have the show on the screen because obviously YouTube will pull it down for copyright reasons, but I'm going to play it on my TV. You all going to play it on your device, your television, your phone, whatever you're going to watch the episode on, and we're going to watch it together. And there's going to be some light commentary as we watch it together, but as the episode ends, we're going to break it down together. So again, hope you all can tune in live next Sunday, May 30th, starting at 8:30 p.m. Central Time. Mare of Easttown, Episode 7, series finale watch along here on this channel. It's going to be a fun time. Hope to see you there. And for my movie fans, just a quick little plug as well. Just this past week, I did reviews for Writers of Justice, Army of Dead, as well as In the Heights early reviews. So check out those reviews and let's have a fun time talking about those new movies. So we got a review here, guys. Episode 6, Sore Must Be the Storm. So let's start this review off talking about that title. So first and foremost, for all that don't know, I always like to break down these titles. So this is actually a poem by Emily Dickinson. Now, this is a poem which is actually titled Hope is the Thing with Feathers. Now, doing my research on what this poem, what people kind of analyze what this means, we all know hope to be as something that is a feeling, right? It's a feeling that we all hope to have in regards to when we're down, where we have things being pushed against us, when it's looking like things aren't going to turn out in a good manner. We have hope that things are going to turn around, right? But in this poem, it's Emily Dickinson that pretty much puts the word hope and makes it not a feeling, but more something that's tangible, something you can actually grab upon, something you can actually see. So how does that relate to this show? Will we know hope is something that Mare hasn't really had in the last year or so, with the loss of her son, with not thinking that Katie was alive. Episode 1, she told Chief Carter that she thinks that she's probably in the ditch somewhere dead. She didn't have hope for a long time, but now, and also she's losing hope of having the custody of her grandson. There's so much things that has been lost in regards to hope. But in the last few weeks, things have kind of turned around for Mare, right? We got the case being resolved. We have things kind of coming around in her household, but there's still hope in resolving her grief. So I think that's such a pivotal title and means so much, and there's so much hope within this show, right? Mothers hoping to reunite with their daughters. We have the hope of figuring out who killed Erin. So there's a big theme in this episode regarding around hope and family, and hoping that things will turn out well. And speaking of hope, I hope next week's finale is fantastic. I hope they stick the landing nonetheless, but a very interesting title nonetheless. But let's get into the meat and potatoes, which is the actual breakdown. So as the episode opens up, we see Mare waking up in the hospital and she's reunited with her family. We have Drew there, we have Siobhan, we have Frank, we have Helen, checking in on Mare. And we also, as I mentioned, there's going to be a theme in this review in regards to hope. reunions and mothers and their daughters. We see a reunion between Katie and her mom, Dawn. We see a reunion between Katie and her daughter. So it's just like a generational thing of love, them coming together for the first time in over a year, which was really nice to see. And again, remember that theme, mothers and daughters and hope, will be something I'm going to bring up a lot throughout this review. Moving to the reporters, adding in their 2 cents, saying that there's still a lot to unpack. And there is still a lot to unpack as viewers from this show and next week's finale. And they believe that there might be a connection between Potts and Erin's death, but we'll talk about that here in a second. But I want to take a moment because they do confirm, I know reading the comments last week, a lot of people were hoping, speaking of hope, that Colin, he's going to be okay. You know, the bullet just grazed, it went through his face and out through his back of his head. He's going to be okay, right? But no, ladies and gentlemen, they confirmed that Colin is dead. R.I.P. to Colin. Evan Peters, I talked about it in episode 1. I'm a big fan of his work, American Horror Story, seeing him in movies every now and then, but he's such a great just entertainer. He's a great, whenever he's in a project, I always get excited. Most recently in WandaVision, Pietro, or we might know him as Ralph Boner. But just want to take a moment to go ahead for all those like myself that was a fan of Colin, to just pay him some memories and having a quiet moment for Colin, as you all can see on the screen now. R.I.P. But moving forward, we cut to the police pulling a bike from the river, and we also get a moment here that we've been kind of looking forward to, right? Deacon Mark finally steps up. He tells the truth to Chief Carter, or I should say at least Father Dan was the one that kind of ignited this conversation, because it seems like Father Dan definitely did tell the police what he found from Deacon Mark last week. We see Chief Carter asking him, what happened to your face? And he immediately lies, and it's at that point Chief Carter's like, you know what, you're a complete liar. I can't trust you. You're probably lying about everything. And when it comes to him, he told the truth. He told them the exact same story that he told Father Dan last week, but they arrest him. They arrest him for tampering with evidence. Now, I think this is poetic justice. Now, I don't want to offend anyone in their religious beliefs, but I say the word poetic justice because going back to just the context of the show, we know that he was allegedly involved in some type of relationship with a 14-year-old girl. Where there's smoke, there's fire. And I'm just talking about the show right now in this regards. I think that he did probably have a relationship with that 14-year-old girl, and he moved on to this new parish. Now, I don't think he had anything, sexually relationship with Erin, but I say poetic justice because this is kind of speaks to the real world situation. Again, I'm not offending anyone out there, but when it comes to priests and deacons and sexual assault and having a relationship with minors, they just get like a slap on the wrist in some cases, right? And they just get the opportunity to go to another church, right? They don't have any kind of legal ramifications for their actions. So I think I say the word poetic justice because I think even though he wasn't responsible for the death of Erin, this is kind of poetic justice to what he may or may have not done to that 14-year-old girl. So let me know your thoughts on Deacon Mark. I think he's telling the truth regarding around Erin, but I think, again, this might be poetic justice for what he may have done to that 14-year-old girl in his last church. Moving on to Mare being bombarded by news reporters as she is returning home, and this is where we get a big reveal from last week's question. Who was the mystery woman that John had an affair with? Well, ladies and gentlemen, it is Sandra. Who the hell is Sandra? I don't know, but apparently this is something that's been happening a couple times in the past, as we kind of alluded to last week, but I don't know who Sandra is. I don't know if we've met Sandra. I don't think it's meant to be anything special. I really think it's just he slept with a random woman in town by the name of Sandra. But we see that Ryan saw him a couple months with Sandra, and we see Lori talking about, in the past she knew when he was having an affair, but this time around she had no idea. She was kind of blindsided by the situation. We see Mare being a friend to Lori, as Lori has been a friend to her all season long. That episode when we see Mare leaning on her shoulder. But, Mare's like, listen, girl, he's going to put the charm on. He's going to try to get you back. And Lori's like, I know, but I love him. He's my husband. He's the father of my children. But John, he has some other skeletons in his closet that we're going to talk about a little bit later in this review. But speaking of John, we cut to John visiting his father, and I think this is the first time we ever met his dad. But we see Billy making his way into the house, and this is something important to note because I put it down in my notes here. We see Billy confronting his older brother. And in this moment here, he gives him his 2 cents about their affair in regards to Billy, how he feels about John in his affair, his recent affair. And he says in this moment here that John has never been held accountable his entire life. Now, we see Billy, he's on edge. He's been drinking a lot more and, something to take note of. But going back to that comment, John has never been held accountable his entire life. I think that there's something going on with John and Billy, and not the other way around where the show wants us to think it's Billy, and we'll talk about that reveal a little bit later, but I think John might be someone to keep an eye out for. We've been saying it for weeks. I think there's something more to John than what the show's giving us right now, but I think it's a very pivotal line that he says to him: "You've never been held accountable for your actions." And I found it interesting at this point in this episode. I'm like, well, we think that Billy's the killer, and they say it so much so in this show that's like, this is, oh, Billy, you're calling your brother a cheater or something bad, but you murdered a girl. But again, I think that there's more secrets between what actually happened to Erin, and we'll get to that a little bit later in the review. But we cut to Mare watching the news, and they were having the memorial set for Colin, which kind of engages her to pay her visits, pay her respects to Colin's mom, which was a very interesting scene, no less. We see her go to the house. She tells Colin's mom that he was a wonderful detective. He saved my life. Well, she doesn't want to hear that. She smacks Mare across the face 2 times, and she says to Mare in this moment, "How dare you come to my house? Who the hell do you think you are? You think you can go around your entire life without consequences? If my son did not go with you, he would still be alive today." Now, I'm going to say it right now. I love Mare. I love Kate Winslet. I love this character, but I am on Colin's mom's side. There is a lot of truth to be said about how that situation was handled. We're going to talk about it in a second here as far as Mare and consequences. But listen, I love Mare, but I'm on Colin's mom's side. There is consequences that should have been taken in her actions, but I'm totally with her in that moment. But cut to Helen. She asks Mare, how did things go? And this was a very intimate moment. As I mentioned up top, there is a theme about mothers and daughters, and we get this beautiful moment between a mother and daughter. This whole show, we've seen Mare and her mom, Helen, go at each other's throats, right? Telling each other to go F off and do this, that, and the other. We've had, funny moments with those two characters, whether it's last week with Helen and her, affairs with Mr. Carroll, but it's in this moment that they have an intimate moment. She embraces her daughter. She cares for her, and there's multiple moments of that mother and daughter relationship for various other characters, like I mentioned earlier, between Dawn and Katie and her daughter, and there's a couple other later in the show. But just thinking of Mare in that moment, seeing her in that vulnerable state, just think of this past year for the character, still dealing with the loss of her son, dealing with the fact that her ex-husband's now moving on and getting engaged, the pressures at work, the stuff with Erin. There's a lot of stuff going on with Mare right now, and just seeing her break down in front of her mom and Helen embracing her. They go at each other's throats, like I mentioned, but it's just great to see those two characters come together. I thought a really nice moment of the episode. But going to Chief Carter, he informs Mare that Mr. Potts does indeed have an alibi. He was not involved in the death of Erin, so this is official now. There are 2 separate cases with what happened with Katie and Missy and Hillary and all that stuff with the kidnapping, and there is the situation with Erin. I think that there's still something going on and some connective tissues that we'll talk about a little bit later. But Carter does give Mare back the case. Listen, I said it a couple minutes ago. I love Mare. I think she's a fantastic character. I love Kate Winslet, more importantly. But I think there should have been more ramifications for last week's actions. I don't know the legal stuff about being a police officer or the detective being taken off of a case and then being involved in a case against the orders of your chief, and obviously a detective in Colin losing his life, being involved in that, because I personally, just my personal 2 cents on the matter, I think that they should have called for backup. Once they saw the Winstons, once they got a hint that he might be involved, I think Colin should have called it in, and obviously Mare couldn't because she wasn't supposed to be there, but I think they should have called it in. But I really do feel that Mare, and especially with Colin's mom, again, I'm not a legal expert, but I don't know if there's any legal ramifications of what she could have done. Like the detective, how is she able to get involved? She was taken off the case. Again, there might not be any legal actions at all, but let me know your thoughts in the comments. Did you think there were going to be more? And listen, we got a finale next week. There might be some ramifications of her actions, but as of right now, it looks like she's gotten the case back. She got her badge back. It's like as water under the bridge, as they say. But let me know if you all thought that or think that Mare should have had more ramifications of what happened to Colin and being involved in the case, or is it just like she's the hero, she ended up saving these girls? It's just water under the bridge. Let me know your thoughts in the comments and let's discuss it. But surprise, surprise, Richard is paying a visit to Mare. He has a care package for her. And, we have this scene between the two. Mare kind of tells her why she ghosted him last week and she went on a date with Colin, which, by the way, she says, she pays her respect. Like she says his full name and not just like a random guy. It meant something to her, the relationship that she had with Colin. But it's in this scene that Richard says, hey, Because Mare tells him, I can't be what you want me to be, as she told Colin the same thing, that she has a lot to deal with, so she can't be in a relationship. I'm sorry, Richard, you're handsome, you're a book writer, you seem to be vibing well, but I can't get this, this isn't what I can do right now in this time in my life. Richard tells her, hey, I understand. When you get your life together, give me a call. Maybe we can do a round 2. So let's talk about it, right? What's the deal with Richard? What's the deal with Guy Pearce? Now, first and foremost, you all, there's a lot of great theories out there in the last few weeks. Number one, very first episode review that I did on this channel, I was like, Richard, he seems to be a mysterious character. He's new in town. There's a girl missing. There's a girl that just died. Is Richard the killer? There was that theory for a while. There was some other theories that Richard might be Colin's dad, which was really interesting. There was a comment out there that, who maybe Richard was part of poker night with Mr. Potts, right? There were so many running theories that was just so fascinating. But the theory that I really kind of thought was very fascinating that I read online before was, what if Richard, being a writer, was just so interested in Mare because he wants to write his next book about a detective, about figuring out the case. And that might be the case, right? That might be something that might be revealed in next week's finale. Or it could just be, speaking of the title being Hope, maybe Richard is literally a character, a tangible character that's supposed to represent hope for Mare. Something to kind of not forget her past, but something she can move forward to, something that she can hope for, right? A particular life with this man who seems to have, he has his baggage, he has his stuff that he told us a couple weeks ago with his relationship with his dad not being good, his relationship with his son not being good at the beginning, but they seem to be on better terms. So he comes with a little bit of baggage, but he doesn't have as much baggage as Mare. So he can be a clean slate, a hopeful clean slate for Mare. So maybe that's what the character represented, because I think, if I'm not mistaken, as I'm going on this tangent here with Richard, I think that I read somewhere that it was supposed to be a lesser known actor that was initially supposed to play Richard, but something happened where, listen, no offense to whoever that actor was, but if you have the opportunity to put Guy Pearce in your movie or your show, you're going to go with Guy Pearce. He's a fantastic actor. So, and also too, as an audience member, we know Guy Pearce as a pretty recognizable actor. So we're thinking, oh, he's the killer, he might be involved, but he could just simply be a character that's supposed to be a little bit lesser known or not as integral in the story, but just represent hope and someone that Mare can maybe date and have like a clean slate. So again, we have one more episode left, but let me know your thoughts on Richard, whatever your theories may be on the character. Is there something else to look forward to in next week's finale, or is it just a character that came in her life and no longer is in her life? Let me know your thoughts on Richard, and let's discuss it in the comments. So we finally get the information about the bullet that killed Erin. Something important to note here. So we see the guy talking about it's from a special gun that was manufactured in the 80s, a special Colt revolver gun. I'm going to put it on the screen now so you guys can see what it looks like. And I don't think we've seen a character that has carried this gun in the show quite yet. But we see in this moment, he says that, Mare, your dad probably had one of these guns back in the day. Remember that. Your dad might have had a gun like that back in the day. Mare gets the call that Brianna's on the phone, which we'll talk about here in a second. But going back to, your dad might have that gun back in the day, and it was stopped being manufactured in 95. I don't know why my mind went to this character, because this character still to me has something to do with the bigger theme in the show revolving around Erin. That character is Siobhan. Now just follow with me here, especially when we talk about my theory a little bit later with the attic. What if Siobhan did take a family heirloom or her grandfather's gun and was the one that killed Erin? We'll talk about that in my theory a little bit later, but I think it's something to note that they said that, hey, Mare, I don't think that's a throwaway line that they mentioned that Mare's dad might have had that gun in the past. Let me know your thoughts on this special revolver gun. But speaking of, we talked about Brianna. We get Brianna telling her side of the story. She finally comes to truth and tells Mare, what she suspected of Dylan. She said it last week that when she woke up, Dylan was not there and all this stuff. And she says to Mare in this scene, I just want to do right by Erin and the baby. And I'm thinking to myself, you want to do right by Erin and the baby, where just 5 weeks ago you were beating up Erin, the mother of the baby that you're so concerned about now. She's grown a conscience, she's grown a heart all of a sudden. Sure, nonetheless, is in this moment that not only Brianna now has a heart, now Tony, her dad, has a heart. He apologizes to Mare for his actions. So again, Brianna, is she telling the truth? Is there some motives? Because Mare even points out in this scene, oh, I know what you're doing. You're just doing this to have a lesser, you want to have your your case, your assault case, maybe be removed or have a lesser penalty for what you did. But I don't know, maybe Brianna has come to the Jesus moment again. The whole episode is called Hope. Maybe she now has hope that she wants to be a good person and have a life of her own one day. But let me know your thoughts on this big reveal from that character. Time to talk to Dylan. We just had Brianna telling the truth about Dylan. Well, now Dylan's brought in. He tells Mare and Chief Carter the same song and dance he told them weeks ago, and tells them that he was in bed with Brianna the whole night, which we know is a lie. And Mare confronts him about that. Like, well, that's not the case. Your ex-girlfriend told us that you weren't there. So right now, what's the situation, Dylan? I went back to the house to find those journals. Did you burn the journals? What are you hiding from us? And this is where Dylan says, I want a lawyer. And I love that Mare and even Chief Carter had a little smile, and she's like, yeah, you get a lawyer, Dylan, and make sure to tell your lawyer that you are the prime suspect in the death of Erin. And there's a lot of signs and signals that point to Dylan being the killer. Or is he? Speaking of my Siobhan thoughts a little bit earlier, being that she might have had the gun and might be responsible of the death of Erin. But Siobhan spoke to the professor that her girlfriend Ann told her about in California, and that she wants her to fly out. She's concerned about her parents not wanting her to go out there, and she doesn't have hope that she's maybe going to have a life outside of Easttown. But it's really interesting in this moment. I thought this was a fantastic line by the Anne character. She says to Siobhan, things don't have to last long to matter. That just hit me on like a life moment. Like, this is so true. We always think that things that have a longer expiration date or have a longer time period means a lot more than something that can be just a quick moment with someone, an interaction with someone that leaves an impact on us. So I just want to point that out. That line is fantastic. There's so many great lines in the show, and this is one of my favorites of the show. But very interesting that she mentions that to Erin, or I should say that Anne mentions that to Siobhan, because it goes back to my theory about Siobhan being the killer, potentially a wild theory of sorts, right? A wild card theory. But it's very interesting to think about that line that Anne said. It doesn't have to last long to have a lasting impact, right? Meaning that she shot her, killed her in a quick moment, but it's something that can forever change her life. I don't know. I might not go to anywhere with Siobhan, but I think there's something to say about Siobhan, ladies and gentlemen. But nonetheless, we cut to Carrie at work. And I thought when I watched this for the first time, I'm like, this is such a throwaway scene. Why are we seeing this? We see that she's at work and she's appearing to be sleepy. She's not getting a lot of rest. She's not getting a lot of, she has one of her coworkers offer her like a pick-me-up drug, a speed drug, something to kind of give her energy. And she declines it. So at first I'm thinking to myself, oh, okay, maybe this is representing that she's a clean woman now. She wants to be a good mom to Drew. So that's what I'm thinking. I'm like, okay, that's the only thing I can think of, but we know why she's sleepy and why that's pivotal to something that happens a little bit later in the episode, which almost gave me a heart attack, and we'll talk about that here in a couple minutes. But Mare is now back at therapy, which is interesting because she doesn't have to go to therapy anymore. Now that she's a detective, Chief Carter is no longer requiring her to go to therapy, but it's in this moment that Mare tells the therapist that she's getting that panic feeling again, that the expectations are getting the better of her, and it's in this moment that her therapist tells her she thinks that Mare hides her grief within other situations. She suppresses her grief. She goes into this case with Katie and she gets consumed by that grief and what Dawn's going through. She gets consumed with Kenny and the whole family and losing their daughter. So she finds these ways to kind of bury her grief and consume herself with other people's grief, which is a very interesting diagnosis for Mare. But it's in this moment here that was very heartbreaking. She asks Mare about the day that Kevin died, and this is where she kind of tells us a story. During this time, this is when Kevin went on his drugs. The neighbors had a lookout for him because he was, at this point stealing things. So one of the neighbors saw him go in the back of the house. She calls Mare. Mare's out doing errands, and we'll talk about Siobhan a little bit later, but it's in this moment that Mare tells Siobhan to go check on her brother. We go to we see the scene, and we see Mare talking about she blacked out. She didn't even know that she drove home. We see her run into the home. She runs up into the attic, which we'll talk about here in a second, and she finds Kevin. I asked, how did Kevin take his own life? Well, he hung himself. He didn't shoot himself like his grandfather did. He didn't shoot, he didn't kill himself in that matter, but he hung himself, which is really sad, this to see. And also we were theorizing, did someone maybe kill him? Was he murdered and not, he didn't take his own life, but, it was Siobhan. And very important to remember, it was Siobhan that found him in this moment, which speaks to a moment a little bit later. But I want to go back to the attic because it's in that moment that Mare tells the therapist that nobody goes to the attic, which goes back to my Siobhan theory. wouldn't that be a good place to put a murder weapon in the attic? Because you know your mom, who's the lead detective on this case, she won't go in that attic. So that would be a pretty good place to put a murder weapon, as well as Helen, right? And this is just being funny. We know Helen has her secret spaces. She puts her, her ice cream in the peas in the refrigerators or the freezer. So maybe Siobhan has her own hiding space in that attic. But going to Beth, calling Mare, she's having issues with her brother Freddie, not Frankie, as I said weeks ago. Just want to put that out there for all the people that just wanted to make sure that I was wrong, and even though I corrected in that review. As I digress, we see Freddie has been missing for 3 days, and Mare finds him in the room with a needle in his arm. He's dead, and we'll talk about that in a second. But not to overlook him dying. People are dropping like flies in the show, but we see in this moment that Mare finds the bag, and she finds a sweater with the Ross family reunion at Lake Harmony. And by the way, Ross, we know, is the last name of John, and it is dated 5/29/17, which we all know ties into that necklace that we'll talk a little bit about later. But again, going back to the death, Beth comes in the house. She finds out that her brother died. And granted, we saw her in episode 1. She says, she says she wished her brother would die because he's such a burden on her. But at the end of the day, we all know, we've all had family members or friends that are go on the deep end or have moments of being down and not being hopeful, but it's her brother at the end of the day. And it was, it's sad to just kind of put that in perspective, losing your brother, someone that's been dealing with drugs, that they ultimately die. So yet another character has been cut on the cutting room floor, and RIP to Freddie. But moving forward, we see Kevin playing a song about a girl who broke his heart, the girl that broke his heart for the first time. I wonder who that girl was, but maybe nothing to think about there. But that's interesting. I think he was in an attic when he was recording that song. But nonetheless, we see Siobhan is obviously still working on this project, and Siobhan calls Anne, leaves her a bunch of text messages, a bunch of voicemails, and she's just down and out. It's almost like Siobhan was in a moment of she had something that she wanted to let go of, right? But she takes this edible. She's obviously super high at this point, and she ultimately is on the edge, and she leaves the house, and we'll get back to her in a second. But going to Beth, she's now at her gathering. We see Mare and Lori having a conversation about the reunion that they had. Lori explains that John put it together. It's important that who put it together? John put it together. And it might be a nice thing, right? Erin and Kenny, they just lost Erin lost her mom, so they thought it was nice to have a family reunion, and no one out of the ordinary was there. We have Kenny, we have Erin, we have a couple other family members, Lori, the kids, we have John and Billy there, and we find out that, it was something for them to kind of, again, they were readjusting and all that different stuff. So it was interesting to note that we have Billy was the roommate of, Erin at that family reunion. But we'll get to that conversation about Billy and Erin as we get further in this review. But another moment about readjusting, right? We see that Mare gets the apology for Dawn because, and it makes sense that Katie, she's back home now. It's kind of like if you all saw the Brie Larson film Room. She's having a hard time readjusting, being back into her day-to-day life. But it was just nice to see Dawn after all these weeks and all this, this year of bent-up anger towards Mare, that they kind of embrace each other and have a moment. It was a really nice moment there. But we see Siobhan. She invites her friends over. She's high. She's upset. She's having a hard time. But we see Mare trying to help her daughter out by putting her, helping her out, getting ready for bed. And it's in this moment that Siobhan tells her, "It should have been you that found him. I hate you for making me be the one that found my brother dead. It took his own life." And it's, again, I talked about the theme of mothers and daughters and reuniting, and we see kind of the reverse of what happened earlier in the episode. Siobhan's down and out. She's upset, and her mom embraces her. Go back to that scene that we got earlier in the episode with Helen embracing her daughter. So again, a lot of mother-daughter, really sentiment, heartfelt moments in this episode. But again, Siobhan, addict, gun, I don't know. Cut to John and his father having a bit of a conversation here as the dad seems shook up. He has something he wants to tell his son. He tells him, and we get this flashback, that on the night of Erin's death, Billy came home late at night, kind of, out of sorts, and we see him covered in blood, putting clothes in the washer, and we think that it is now confirmed that Billy is responsible for the death of Erin. Or is he, ladies and gentlemen? We'll get to my theories later down in this review. But we see Kenny is being questioned by Carter and Mare about what happened in the reunion. And by the way, how did Frankie ended up getting those clothes, and he tells him that Freddie's daughter was having a birthday. He didn't have money to get clothes, so he suggested that he go ahead to the house and use Erin's clothes and make use of it or whatnot. So that's how he came about the clothes. And she brings up, okay, the connection between the sweater and the necklace, and is there any connection to it? And that's where we get the reveal that it was Billy that was staying with Erin when they were out on that vacation. Cut back to Drew, who's now spending the night with his mom. A lot of family reunions in this episode as we see that theme going through this. But we see Mare paying a visit to Frank, and they're having a conversation about, number one, Frey is no longer home. It looks like they're not going to be getting married because she's been at her mom's house ever since they had that paternity test, with Frank, being alluding to being the dad of the child, DJ. But, we have this conversation about Carrie, and it seems like Mare is not hopeful of getting her grandson, but she seems to kind of letting it go. She wants Carrie to have the opportunity to be a mother to that child, which Frank is kind of thrown off guard. I'm thrown off guard as well, but we see what a mother and what Carrie looks like as a potential mother a little bit later. But cut to Carrie being a mom, being a first-time mom. To be fair, there's a lot of stories. I know my mom had some mistakes as a mom. I was left in the store one time, and I have friends, and this is just a tangent here. One of my friends, their mom forgot them on the top of their car when they were loading up groceries. Nothing happened to my friend, but first-time moms, first-time dads, first-time parents in general, they have mistakes, and this one was going to be a big mistake if it would have played out this way. But we see Carrie giving a bath, and I'm just already thinking in my head, okay, that scene early in the episode is now coming to fruition. She's sleepy. We see that she's falling asleep at the tub, and at this point, I'm just like, oh no, please don't kill Drew. Please do not kill this kid. All through the midst of all this stuff going on, we cut in between that scene and Jess catching up with Jess, and we see that Dylan's like, well, the journals, and did you tell Mare this stuff? And he says to her, the three of us will always be joined together. As she's running away and they're chasing after her. What does he mean by that? The three of them will always be joined together, which again, the show, this whole episode is like, Billy's a killer. Oh no, Dylan's a killer, and whoever that random kid is, and Jess has something to do with it. I don't know what the three of them have a tie all together means. Obviously, it's alluding to them being responsible for the death of Erin, but cutting back to Carrie being knocked out, and we see Drew go under the water, back to Jess and Dylan catching her and then pointing a gun at her and saying, I will, if you continue to talk, he threatens her and says, I will shoot you in the head and blow off your face like Erin did, which alludes to him being the one responsible for killing her. Back to a point in the episode where my heart literally dropped. And this almost put me in the same mindset of when Colin died last week, and also the mindset I had when Dylan was walking up to DJ with that pillow a couple weeks ago. We see Carrie wakes up and she finds Drew laid in the water, face down. I'm like, oh my gosh, dude, this kid's dead. He's drowned. But no, he's playing Aquaman. He's like, Mom, I can hold my breath underwater forever. Luckily, he didn't die, because if he would have died, I'm like, oh my gosh, this show is extremely dark now. But I'm at this point, I'm like, Carrie, you need to pack up the clothes and send the little man back to his grandmother's house. But man, let me know in the comments if you all were just as shooken as I was thinking that Drew was dead in that water, because I literally thought that's where the show was going. But cut back to Lori and John. John thanks Lori for allowing him to come over to see the kids, and this is where Lori brings up the fact, hey, what happened at the reunion? Billy, Erin, was there anything going on there? And this is where you see John, the wheels in his head starting to move and being like, oh no, I don't think anything happened. I'll ask him a little bit later and see what's going on there. And obviously he's covering, or at least we think he's covering for his brother in this moment. We see Mare looking through the pictures of the family reunion. Again, this is the red herrings of Billy. We see in the picture in the foreground, we see Erin there, but in the background is Billy creepily looking at his cousin there. We see John talking to Billy, and it appears that he is aware of some type of relationship that Billy and Erin had, alluding to him being the child of the father. And this is where John just says, I need to hear you say it. I need to hear you say it, Billy. And ladies and gentlemen, he says it. Billy killed Erin. And we've been saying in all this past weeks that we know he's the dad. But did he kill Erin? He says it in the scene. Or is it a big brother manipulating his little brother? Let me know, besides my thought, what I just said, let me know, how did you feel about that moment? Did you feel satisfied finding out that it was Billy? Or do you think, like me, that maybe it was John that actually killed Erin? Reasons being, not sure, but it's something about John to me, guys. It's just his persona. It's just the way he carries himself. He's a liar. He's a cheater. There's secrets that he has, and I think that he's not covering for his brother. I think it's the other way around. I think it's Billy covering for him. And again, big brother manipulating little brother. I need you to say it. You killed her. I need you to say it. You killed her. Like putting that in his head. But I don't know. I might be completely wrong in this situation, but there's something about John. It's just, I have a feeling
Sorry for this extremely weird voiceover, guys, but as I'm editing this video, I'm rewatching the episode as we speak, and I'm telling you all, this seems so rehearsed. It seems like John is forcing his little brother to commit a crime he did not do. I urge you all to rewatch that scene and tell me it doesn't feel like John is forcing Billy to say that he killed Erin. Let me know your thoughts in the comments.
But cut to John telling Lori where he just found out and everything that happened, and he tells her, we need to keep the family together. I need you to keep this secret for the family. Do not tell Mare. Cut to Billy and John getting ready to, Billy's like, I'm going to confess. I'm going to tell the cops what I've done. And he's, are you sure about this? Do you want to do this? And John says, you know what, let's go to Dad's cabin. Let's go out to the woods. And they agreed to do this. And I'm thinking to myself, well, you're dead now, John, because your brother's going to probably kill you, which we'll get to that in a second. But Mare continues to look on the case. She traces the necklace back to this jeweler, which is shown, it just says Ross. Obviously it's alluding that Billy did buy her the necklace, but we cut back to Billy and John, and this is where my theory really kind of sticks strong in regards to John being the responsible killer of Erin, because they're getting the gear together. We see Billy comes across the tackle fish box, and he's surprised. He sees a gun, and by the way, that isn't the revolver, so going back to that Colt revolver, it's just a regular gun. When he sees that gun in that tackle box, he's just as surprised as I am as an audience. He didn't plant that there. It was almost like John put that there to kill his own brother. Mare sees Billy is again connected. She finds out from Lori, which kudos to Lori. She tells the truth. She tells her what she just found out. She did the right thing. She tells them that they're at the cabin. We cut to seeing, the whole story being played out by Lori, that Erin was apparently threatening Billy to tell everyone that he's the father of the child. He got upset about it. As I had mentioned, as you all can see in the clip now, 29/17. I don't know the significance of that date. I don't think it's connected to the birth of DJ, but it might be an important date for Erin. Maybe that's when her and Dylan became a couple. Maybe that's the day that she maybe first hooked up with Billy. Who knows the significance? I was theorizing that I do think that that date, 5/29/17, was when the date that Billy and Erin officially became a thing, and then we get the location of where they are. As the show's kind of wrapping up, we see Mare talking to Chief Carter, that she tells him about the news. He says, you need backup, Mare, and we know Mare doesn't play by the rules. She goes in there, blazing cells, hot and ready to figure out the case. Cut to the rookie cop coming to Chief Mare and telling him that Jess has some information about Erin's death. Cut between Mare arriving at the cabin. Jess has that picture we talked about from last week's journal, and she gives it to Chief Carter, and he immediately says, get Mare on the phone now. What is on that picture? Is it John? Is it Erin? Is it Siobhan? Is it, a lot of people theorize that they think Kevin's the father, which Billy is the father now, but what is on that picture? Back to the cabin. Mare sees some footprints, and she makes her way to finding Billy and John. End of episode. Now, I don't think we're going to have another shootout. They have already played that card. I don't think we're going to get back or two shootouts in the show. I think that she's going to apprehend or arrest Billy, because they think, everything's leading towards Billy being the killer, but I think Billy's hiding some secrets that his brother might be involved with. So let's pose some questions that I want to know from you all. Going back to Richard, is he a regular guy? Will he have any play into next week's finale? Deacon Mark, was he telling the truth? Is that the end of his story? Is it poetic justice that he is now being arrested for tampering with evidence and that's just the end of his story? Or is there more for Deacon Mark? I think we've pretty much wrapped up that story, as well as Richard. I don't think Richard's going to play into the finale next week, but we'll see. What is this forever connection that Dylan is referring to with that random guy and Jess? What did they do? What is that photo of? What was in the journals that they burned? Let me know your thoughts on that. Did Dylan and Billy, or maybe Dylan and John, work together in killing Erin? Is there still some type of connective tissues to the prostitution thing, the drug thing? Does it still tie into it? Is there any of that still going on? Let me know your thoughts on that. And then wrapping up my crazy wild theories about the attic situation. Is it that Siobhan's hiding the murder weapon in the attic that she found from her grandfather? Let me know your thoughts there. And then lastly, Betty and the kid and the Prowler, is that storyline still something we can look forward to? And so much to break down. Again, ladies and gentlemen, just a quick reminder, we're going to be doing a live watch along May 30th, 8:30 p.m. Central Time here on this channel. We're going to pregame for 30 minutes. We're going to watch the episode together, and then we're going to break it down together after the episode premieres. So I hope you all can tune in live. If not, just watch the replay. It's going to be a good time. So, wow, this was yet another fantastic episode. A great way to set up the finale next week. A lot of red herrings, a lot of misleading, a lot of illusions, but also a lot of hope, ladies and gentlemen. So let me know your thoughts on this episode, your pros, your cons, your thoughts, your theories. Make sure to like the video, share the video. Again, leave your thoughts in the comment section. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and hit the bell. That way you don't miss any of my other content. Hope you all have a fantastic week. Hope you all can tune in live next week for the live watch along. We'll see you all on the next video.